Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Paige, here once again with another video on Arrow Season 8. So the TCAs were the other day. Most of you would know that because they released a decent amount of crisis information, which I'm sure you might have watched my video on. If you haven't, what the hell are you doing? But only Arrow and Batwoman had like individual panels in regards to DC, like DC TV stuff. The reason for that is that for Arrow it's their last season, so you know, just show some respect and like a farewell thing. And with Batwoman, it's their first season. So with these TCAs, usually all the shows that have their first seasons coming up, their debut seasons, they'll have their own panel where they can just display what the show is going to be, show a new trailer possibly, and stuff like that. So with Arrow, they went over a decent amount of stuff in regards to the last season, which was pretty interesting, which we will of course go over in this video. Now we will be just going over the stuff in order in regards to how they talked about it, not listing it from most important to least important or anything like that. We'll just go in order with how they talked about it. But of course, throughout this video, be sure to leave all of your various opinions in the comment section down below. Which of these little things get you excited, and little theories you might have about some stuff, because some of it isn't like flat out, it's like sort of vague, but does get you excited at the same time, if you know what I mean. So leave any of those theories and just thoughts in the comments. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video and you're just excited for Arrow's final season, and as well as anything you like in this video, be sure to drop a like on it to show your support and hype. So the first thing to mention is that it was Stephen Amell and David Ramsey in regards to the actors that were there. Katie Cassidy, who of course plays the various versions of Laurel Lance, was meant to be there, but she's actually directing episode 3 of this season, and that's about to start filming. So she was in Vancouver prepping for that episode, so she couldn't be there. But they did announce that David Ramsey, who plays Diggle, will be directing episode 6 of this season. So that was another announcement that they made. So there's your 2 actors that are directing this season. Now they did actually give some info in regards to where season 8 picks up. So we knew that Flash picks up like a couple of seconds or something after like 10 seconds, I think they said specifically, after their finale. And Arrow's final season picks up a week after the season 7 finale. So it's gonna be interesting to see what it's like and the characters and stuff like that. I'm still very intrigued in regards to how they're gonna handle this last season, in regards to where the characters are placed and all that. It's gonna be super interesting. Like, we already know some of the stuff that's in episode 1 thanks to the Comic-Con trailer. So yeah, I'm just interested to see what they do. But they were talking about like the reason that Arrow is ending this season, because Arrow could have easily gone to season 10, season 11, season 12, like supernatural levels. Like, they would have easily been able to keep the viewership around, especially with the other shows there, and just the Arrowverse in general just being there just keeps viewers around. But they did say that they didn't want to be that show that stayed too long at the party, and that they did go on to say that it's like a rare opportunity that they get to creatively end their show on their terms. So we see with a lot of other shows, they just end. They can finish their season, then all of a sudden they're cancelled or something along those lines. And say, oh no, we don't want to, continue your show or anything like that. Or you can be cancelled midway through a season. You could have time to wrap it up, but you haven't like laid the platform and planted the seeds to properly end that show, especially if you're an older show that's been on for multiple seasons. So that's why they decided to end it. Obviously, Stephen Amell was a major factor. He wanted to spend more time with his family, but they could have kept him there for contract reasons if they wanted to. Now, they were talking about like the individual episodes as well, and they did say that every episode is about, and I quote, putting a button on various parts of the story. So every episode is basically this event, and that the format of the show that we had in the past seasons is gone. Like, this season of Arrow is going to be completely different to what we've seen in the past. And as I said, like, every episode is going to be this like sort of an event thing, which I'm really interested to see what they mean by that, because there's multiple avenues that you could go down when they say event. I just think it's going to be like every episode is basically like those big episodes of Arrow, which I'm really, really excited about. And they wanted to say like the reason for this is because they're leading up to something spectacular, that like they're allowed to do these huge event episodes and bring characters back that we haven't seen in ages due to this. So each episode is humongous, and as I was saying, it's probably like going to be those, you get those big episodes now, like your mid-season finales, and then like 1 or 2 or maybe 3 episodes throughout the season which just have like over-the-top stuff. Each episode's going to be that, which just sounds amazing. And obviously we know that like characters like Tommy Merlin, Malcolm Merlin, Adrian Chase, Moira Queen, they're coming back. So I'm excited to see who else they bring back throughout the season, because they basically have, the chance to do that. They're given free reign, so I'm just excited to see what they do. Now, obviously, at the end of last season, we saw the Monitor show up and go, "Yo, Oliver, you're gonna die, so let's go. That's the deal you made." And Mark Guggenheim was talking about this, so he was saying that like people think that the ending will be like X or Y, but they said that they have Plan Z, so something else will happen. So I think like the two options is that Oliver doesn't die or Oliver dies. Like those are the two options that a lot of people have in their brain. But what could this Z option that Mark Guggenheim is referring to actually be? And I think it would be probably the Paradise Dimension. So the Paradise Dimension is from the comics. It's from Crisis. Essentially, it's just like this other realm, if you want, or another dimension, if you want to call it, where people went afterwards. And that's where they didn't say it flat out, but we assume that's where Felicity went at the end of Arrow Season 7 in the future. And you think if, Monitor's taking her through there, that's where Oliver would have to be as well. So maybe Oliver doesn't flat out die. He just goes to this Paradise Dimension. Like he has to actually give up his existence to have allowed other things to have played out. You know what I mean? So I think that's what we're going to see, because there's something else we'll talk about in a second, which sort of makes it seem that Oliver won't die in Crisis, which is really weird. But yeah, I think Plan Z, which is probably going to happen, as they're sort of alluding to there, is Oliver not really dying, but not existing, if that makes sense, because he's going to go to the Paradise Dimension. Now, Stephen Amell was talking about how he's getting like emotional every single episode, not because it's ending necessarily, but because he's getting the chance to, as we're sort of talking about before, like characters are coming back, but he's being allowed to work with actors that he hasn't been able to work with for years, even from like back in season 1. So he's like taking in every moment and just enjoying every moment, because for him it's going to be cool as well, and everyone that's involved in the show and those episodes, when people come back, especially if they haven't seen them for a while. But it's going to be awesome for us, the audience, as well, especially when we see characters that we haven't seen since season 1, 2, or even like season 4 and 5. Ragman will probably come back in some way. So seeing those characters come back and interact with everyone there is going to be awesome. I think we're all excited for that. Yeah, so I can understand why Stephen would be like so excited about it. And they were also talking about like Tommy Merlin's return, and they basically confirmed that Oliver's going through the multiverse. He said it's definitely possible on an Earth. So we already knew that this was going to happen, but this is like more confirmation that it's basically multiverse, traveling throughout this season, and probably time traveling as well. So yeah, excited to see what happens there. Now, in regards to the guest cast coming back, Beth Schwartz did say that the whole season, the whole season 8 of Arrow is basically a greatest hits like album for Arrow. So they're going to be tying up some stories that you could have seen in season 2 or 3 with certain characters that didn't get to play out, because they actually have the grounds to now do it. So, from what I know, Mark Guggenheim and Beth Schwartz are working their butts off for multiple things for Crisis, as well as this season, in regards to just making it as great as it possibly can, and I'm so excited for the season just based off that. Now, there's one thing here that made me go, "Oh, Stephen, you shouldn't have mentioned that," because it sort of makes me think that you're not that good creatively. And no offense to Stephen, but Stephen said that he pitched to the producers that Oliver should run into Samantha Clayton in Central City in the crossover during Arrow season 3. So that was like the first, was that the first crossover between them? Was it Arrow season 3 or was it Arrow season 4 that happened? No, Arrow season whatever it was. No, it was Arrow season 4, wasn't it? Anyway, he pitched to the producers that Oliver should run into Samantha Clayton, and thus William became a thing. So I think Stephen might have just made it that we can blame him for all the crappy William storylines. No offense, Stephen, but it wasn't the best. Maybe you shouldn't have pitched that. That wasn't the best. Anyway, let's move on. Now, David Ramsey, who plays Diggle, was actually asked about a Greenland spinoff, and this is all he said. He said 3 words. He said, "There you go." So there you go. Make of that what you will. That's all he said about it, and then they moved on. So I don't know, maybe they just can't talk. And maybe the less words means more. Maybe that means we're definitely getting some Greenland in Crisis. Let's wait and see. Now, Mark Guggenheim was actually asked about seeing characters throughout the Arrowverse after Arrow. So he's seeing like those Arrow actors or Arrow characters in other shows after Arrow. And he said, "We're always talking about it, but there's nothing that has gone so far down the road." And I'm not surprised by this, because off the top of my head, I couldn't think of any of the current people in the shows outside of Diggle, outside of Diggle, that could appear in any other shows. And the reason I say that is because Diggle is really the only other character that's appeared in the other shows. You know, he's appeared in Flash multiple times. And obviously Lila's there, and Lila's connected to other parts of the universe. So that's about it. Diggle's the only one I could see happening. The other characters I don't think would necessarily fit into a show unless they went to Legends. That's about it. And the final thing to talk about, which is the thing that got a lot of people excited, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. And that's that the Arrow episode of the Crisis crossover, which is the 8th episode of Season 8 of Arrow, so 8-8, there you go. It's the second last episode of the crossover, but it's sort of like the first half, it's the first hour of the 2-hour finale, because Arrow and Legends are on the same night for those last 2 parts of the crossover, so they're basically it's just the first hour of that 2-hour finale. But that episode, that Crisis episode for Arrow is going to be written by Mark Guggenheim, which no surprise there, but also Marv Wolfman. Now, Marv Wolfman, if you know, created a couple of cool characters like Deathstroke and stuff like that, but he also wrote the original Crisis on Infinite Earths comic. He wrote that with George Perez and stuff like that. So that's amazing. So that makes you think that the Arrow episode is arguably the most important part of Crisis in regards to the story, and that's why they had to bring in Marv Wolfman. I'm sure he might have some overseeing duties, like people might shoot some stuff back to him and say, well, what do you think about this? Because they want to respect the source material, so it makes complete sense that they would, bring him in, and also and I guess having him co-write an episode is just the ultimate respect shown to him. But the big thing about this is that Arrow actually has 2 episodes after the crossover. Arrow has 10 episodes this season, so if the Crisis episode is episode 8, we have 9 and 10, so what are they going to do in those episodes? Which makes you think that Oliver doesn't die in Crisis, and that Plan Z, where he basically just goes to the Paradise Dimension and just sort of gives up his existence, if that makes sense, is actually what happens. So Oliver doesn't technically die in Crisis on Infinite Earths, if we're going off this. He's just going to give up his existence. Like, to us, he's died. Or to everyone else on the Earth, just the general public, he's died. But to him, and I guess maybe some close people, he didn't die. He just gave up his existence to, allow other things to happen. So I'm intrigued to see what those last 2 episodes are. It's going to be exciting, but also extremely sad at the same time. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on what we went over in this video, and your various theories as well, I guess, if you want to do that. And if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.